welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, obviously, just got back, had a busy day. Obviously, we're going a little bit live a little bit later on, but man, have the comments really stacked up here in the comment section. Certainly seeing everything right now. We'll go into a number of different things. Obviously, we got a number of people in the chat already. Obviously, if you have not done so, if you want your question to the top, down below is the super chat button. You can certainly make a small donation to the program. It'll highlight and it'll go right to the top of my feed, and we'll be able to answer the question live on the screen. But tonight, a number of different topics. Obviously, a live Q&A as always. We will always do a live Q&A on the Sunday conversation. But there's a lot of good topics here tonight. Obviously, the second year of the Kade Bell offense, spring camp now starting, getting closer and closer to beginning. April 12th, we have ourselves the Pitt football spring game. A spring game will happen. We'll go into a conversation between should Pitt be doing that as you look around the country right now, a number of different programs no longer playing their spring games, obviously because due to rampant tampering. We've seen Matt Roll. We've also heard from people like Lane Kiffin talk about the potential conversation of not having a spring game also too. You also look at a guy like Rich Rodriguez in his first year at West Virginia talking about not doing a full game. It's certainly going around the docket quite often, so we'll talk about that. Also, too, we'll dive into tonight the actual discrepancy right now. I dropped a video today talking about the automatic qualifiers, but also how that's actually devaluing the college football regular season, especially, too, the non-conference schedule, which is something we all love to see. Obviously, Pitt does not shy away from the non-conference schedule, facing teams like West Virginia, Tennessee, Wisconsin, UCF, Notre Dame. Certainly does not shy away from it, but obviously with automatic qualifiers potentially really devaluing the college football season. We'll dive into that obviously tonight. And obviously, too, you have to, especially on the Sunday conversation, we always love the dialogue and the open comments. We'll be going into a bunch of that stuff here tonight, obviously. Appreciate my guy, Jason Watkins, in here. JJ, my man, Jason Watkins, as always. If you have not done so, subscribe to his show like you do here and like the videos and like the channel as well. The Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Jason Watkins, the best. Obviously, I loved his published article that he has on his channel, obviously talking about how the automatic qualifiers, talking about how it's not good for college football. He did a great job, and I suggest reading that. Jason, always appreciate you, brother. Always love going on his show as well. Obviously, if you haven't done so, smash the like button and subscribe. Join Alliance 412 WRW Pitt, always in the comment section. Same with Wolf HD, Pitman94, Tim Bales. Obviously, great here. Obviously, a West Virginia fan, a great West Virginia fan. Love the show on the college football playoff quagmire. Keep up the good work and never stop calling out the hypocrisy. Tim, appreciate all the support as always. Again, obviously, Tim's a West Virginia fan, but obviously we love seeing him over on our channel. One of the great WVU fans, obviously, and also, too, as you can imagine, obviously, we've had on the show here Cooz's Corner. Obviously, Cooz does a tremendous job covering West Virginia. If you want to know what's going on with West Virginia, certainly give him a follow as well. If you've not done so, hit the like button down below and subscribe to the channel here as well. But obviously, guys, you know how we start this off. As always, the show is sponsored by Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Obviously, too, you always have the Pitt, Hail to Pitt, Icy Light Can, a cool partnership they have there with the University of Pittsburgh. They certainly have that in there. They always up that over there. Obviously, make sure you go over and get yourself a 30 rack. Obviously, too, they have a number of different selections in there. Tremendous people, obviously, multiple Pitt alumni, Pitt season ticket holders. Obviously, I've known them for countless years, to say the least, since I was a young kid. Tremendous people, great customer service, but more importantly, anytime you can help out a Pitt fan, but more importantly, Pitt donors like themselves who are season ticket holders, but also two great donors to Pitt athletics and to Pitt football. Make sure you go over there and see them today and help them out, but more importantly, support small business. Again, Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. The show is also sponsored by Thompson Law Group with Brian Thompson, an attorney on your side. Right now, with many people struggling with the economy and rising costs, they're helping many people and their businesses with their debts. And they're also offering free telephone consultations to assess all options available to those, no matter the type of amount of debt you are in. You can reach them at 724-799-8404 or visit them at thompsonattorney.com. Again, Brian Thompson, someone I use personally, does a tremendous job, cares about you, the individual, and the results that you need dependent upon the case that you have. Obviously, if Brian doesn't have the answer, he'll make sure he'll get you the answer with someone else and guide you through the process by stage. Brian is truly one of the best, does an incredible job in the community, obviously well known as an individual who is really incredible on the outset. I mean, you can talk to Brian anywhere. It doesn't matter who it is or where it is. Brian is truly one of the best in the business, and obviously an attorney you can trust. Just give him a call. Obviously, he'll be able to answer your questions, but more importantly, he will do anything he can to help you out. Obviously, Thompson Law Group with Brian Thompson. Call them at 724-799-8404 or visit them at thompsonattorney.com. All right. Obviously, again, the comment section is certainly blowing up, to say the least. Again, we'll go through it here. Obviously, the super chats, we'll keep an eye on the super chats as well, coming up, popping up on the screen. Guys, as always, Wolf HD here. Pitt is great at finding diamonds early and getting them before others. However, they have been losing them in the past few years. Folks, Dotson, etc. What can Pitt do to fend off the higher offers? Wolf, well, to get to your point here, obviously, the one thing that's going to really help, obviously, Pitt out here is obviously the revenue sharing, because one, they've talked about, especially Alan Green and his, obviously, in multiple interviews that he's done with WCAE, 93.7 The Fan, they've talked about how they are going to go to the limit of the $20.5 million a year mark, which is really good to hear for Pitt. Obviously, they've done a really good job at that. Obviously, Alliance 412 being involved in that as well. That's going to help them out a lot. Obviously, NIL from the previous years, we've really been in the rough range of really, it's $6.5–7 million a year overall. The Alliance 412, that is certainly going to jump up with obviously university funds. Obviously, they're going to have to make really tough, difficult decisions, obviously, in the athletic department, depending upon which sports stay, which sports go. We'll be able to monitor that as well. But obviously, right now, when you look at Folks, obviously, certainly got a bag at the last second, a guy who I think is going to be a good wide receiver. We still have good other wide receivers in this class as well. Dotson, obviously. Dotson's a little bit different. Dotson did not have to do anything with money. Dotson is from the Detroit area, and as a kid, he always wanted to play for Michigan. Michigan didn't have an offer out to him till really the last 2 weeks of the recruiting cycle before December. They offered, and he committed, and obviously, he went and visited. Right after that, he committed. So Dotson, there's really nothing you can do about that. He wanted to play for Michigan. Obviously, he's from the Detroit area. You guys probably saw my tweet earlier today. Cass Tech, obviously a tremendous high school in the Detroit area. Archie Collins has done a great job. Obviously, home to Avante Maddox, Super Bowl champion out of the Philadelphia Eagles. And obviously, too, a great cornerback in his time period with the Pitt Panthers, obviously. But Cass Tech, well known for a number of great players. Obviously, Terrence Enos, obviously out of Cass Tech. Tremendous players that have just come from there. And obviously, Pitt's had a really good run of there. Obviously, you still want to dive into that. But I can tell you this, the Dotson thing, there's nothing Pitt could do with that. Obviously, you want to play for Michigan, you want to stay home. Hey, there's nothing you can do about that. If anything, I congratulate the young man for staying home and playing for his hometown team. Folks, obviously, that was just pure money. That was just pure money from Missouri. They certainly have a lot of money. They've really popped onto the scene with the amount of donations that they've got there. Obviously, nothing you can do there. Obviously, just need more money. And I think that right now, obviously, revenue sharing is going to help Pitt. They're going to go to that top echelon. But obviously, Alan Green and Chancellor Joan Gable have done a tremendous job so far in his first 3 months on the job at Pitt. Obviously, has already announced 2, obviously, corporate sponsorships involved with going into the corporate side of, obviously, the athletic department. Alan Green, over his time at Pitt, will do a great job. He took this job because he saw the competition here, but more importantly, the ability to win championships, and he talked about that in his opening day presser. So overall, I think just the biggest thing is obviously to just continue to create revenue. And there's going to be certain ways to do that, obviously, through season tickets, obviously. Obviously, Alan Green talked about, if you want to help anybody out, get your season tickets, obviously. I'll be renewing, obviously, my season tickets coming up here soon, as always, every year. It's a great job, obviously, that Alan Green has done to this point. He's certainly done a lot of stuff that has not gotten to the airwaves, obviously, but that will continue to drive up as we continue to move on. Obviously, too, I know people have talked about, Jeff Capel and the situation going on with Pitt basketball. Obviously, another year where, last 2 years, obviously, Pitt really stepped up in basketball. But, just the bad coaching overall, again, has really just downed Jeff Capel. I don't expect Jeff Capel to go anywhere. The focus will really be put on, obviously, football and basketball and volleyball. But the main focus right now is going into this year, as basketball season finishes up, we're probably going to be starting to focus on football and what we need to do there, because this 2025 to 2031 is going to be a massive impact for really every university across the country, because I think in 2031 we could potentially see another shift in terms of breaking away from the NCAA. College football truly makes the decisions moving forward, and we could potentially see something that really happens here from a number of different areas in terms of what college football looks like and how it's reshaped when it comes to 2031 when the TV contracts are up, from what I've been told. So it's going to be a very important time period, obviously, in terms of Pitt creating revenue generation, but obviously football and basketball needing to get back on track, obviously. Pat Narduzzi certainly does have a gripe in terms of the overall injuries. I'm not shying away from that. I think he does have a point. That's really what led to Pitt's downfall last year. Still a number of games. I still say the Virginia game and the Clemson game, those are two games you have to win there. I think the Boston College game, you should have won there too. Those 3 games, for how they played, I thought, the team did well enough to win those games, but lack of decision-making, bad coaching overall, really down Pitt in those games. But obviously, too, the injuries really held them back. So Pat Narduzzi does have something on his side to really push back on what they really did towards the end of the year. But right now, Pitt basketball, there's really nothing going on there. Obviously, they've had a couple of injuries here and there, but just lackluster play overall and lackluster coaching have really put them in a bind. Simple solution, Wolf HD, Alliance 412, and buying merchandise. Pitman Zach is a good point. Obviously, buying merchandise does help too. But the biggest thing is Alliance 412. That's a really big one. Obviously, we'll see what that looks like going forward in terms of what Alliance 412 looks like in the future here after April when everything's finalized with revenue sharing. But obviously, too, season tickets. I cannot tell you enough how much season tickets mean to the University of Pittsburgh. Obviously, we've done a great job. Pitt released last week. There was 4,000 new season ticket holders. That was huge. Obviously, not season ticket holders, but new season tickets. 4,000 new season tickets. That was huge. Obviously, it continues to grow. The schedule this year for Pitt, obviously, is a great schedule overall. And again, I mean, you've got a number of different teams obviously coming up here. Obviously, you got Notre Dame coming into town, Miami. West Virginia will be on the road this year, but still a great schedule here at home. Obviously, the kickoff game of the year, obviously the city game, and that's not going to be in basketball. Who would have thought it's going to be in football, which I think is a really good thing for Pitt because, one, it's another home game for Pitt. You get to have 7 home games this year, and it's right here in your backyard. You're not spending any money having to travel anywhere. That's a huge thing. When you look at other teams like Cincinnati, West Virginia, Cal, Stanford, all those teams have to travel all the way across the country, having to do crazy stuff and spending millions of dollars on travel expenses, which certainly hurt their athletic departments. So I think it's a really good thing overall for Pitt, in that game. And there'll certainly be a good crowd there for that game, to say the least. And that's just easy money for Pitt. And I think just overall, it's a really good job. And personally, I hope that game continues and continue to play it, obviously, at Acrisure Stadium or maybe the new Pitt Stadium down the road. Who knows? Throwing that out there, just ruffling feathers. That's all I'm doing here. But very good point, Pitman Zach. Again, obviously, Tim Bales, appreciate you. Love your show, the College Football Quagmire. Thank you. Obviously, if you've not done so, head on over to the channel, obviously. Dropped a new video today, which was pretty big. Obviously, too, I'll share my screen here to show you guys here. Let's see here. Channel content. No, that's one right here. Obviously, too, if you head over to the channel, obviously, a new video dropped today. Obviously, too, right here. Last stand for the ACC commissioner. Obviously, I talk about there just the importance overall of what Pitt really needs to do, obviously, but also what Commissioner Jim Phillips needs to do. Talks about, obviously, the importance of what he's done. He's done a good job on a number of different things, but there's also done a number of different things really, really bad and been quiet on a number of different aspects. Make sure you go over there to the channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Obviously, go ahead and see that one. Obviously, it's a big one, as you can imagine. Obviously, let's see here. Yeah, through here, obviously, too, number of different ones. Obviously, new videos that are up, and obviously, to the live streams. But make sure you pop onto there. It's an important live stream there, and one that'll certainly catch your attention. Let's see here. Other comments before we start really diving into it here. Will Kade Bell put in a short yardage and goal line package for Julian Duggar? So he probably already does have one, but at the same time, though, if you're expecting Pitt to go under center at all this year, I don't expect it. That's just not part of the Kade Bell offense. It's up tempo, fast paced, out of the shotgun. A more like again, we've talked about it before when he first got hired. It's a lot like a pro style spread. Obviously when you look at the passing concepts, a lot of stuff they do is NFL type. But also too, again, their run game is certainly too a lot of RPO. In terms of what the college game looks like now, it's a mixture of both. He does a really good job of mixing it up from side to side, being able to really extend the wide receivers all the way out to the sidelines, a lot like what you see at Tennessee, but also certainly does not shy away at bringing those wide receivers in, trip sets, obviously, closer to the line of scrimmage. Obviously, he does a lot of pin pull, which means, really you have the wide receiver on the inside. Sometimes I thought he did a little bit of too much. A guy like Raphael Poppy Williams being as small as he is, cracking down on a defensive end that are, 6'5". I'm not really sure that's really significant in terms of offense and helping the offense at all, but does a really good job of moving people in and out. Finding those guys, obviously, we found out a lot about Desmond Reed this year, a guy who really stepped up, did a tremendous job, became an All-American this year. He's back again this year. Eli Holstein, second year in the offense. For me, I have the expectations very, very high this year for Kade Bell in this offense, and I think it should be high. It's the second year of this offense. The quarterback situation is solidified. You have your quarterback, a guy who's really, in my opinion, a top 2, top 3 quarterback in the ACC this year. You look at the ACC again, another year of great quarterback play coming up here. Obviously, Kate Klumnik, he's back for Clemson. Cam Ward leaves Miami to go to the NFL, but guess what? Carson Beck comes over from Georgia to head down to the University of Miami. He's back. Obviously, Eli Holstein's back. Louisville will always have a good quarterback with Jeff Brom there. I think Jeff Brom does a tremendous job on a number of different levels, and what he does at Louisville, I think that they have a lot of untapped potential down there, and look what they're trying to do and what they're trying to prove down there. I think they continue to do a good job down there as well. Obviously, North Carolina, Bill Belichick. North Carolina not on the schedule this year for Pitt, but obviously a team to watch. We'll continue to watch and see how Bill Belichick does in his first year in the college game. The old stomping grounds are where his dad ended up coaching college football, so it's going to be an interesting thing to watch this year. NC State obviously had a really bad football year last year. We'll continue to watch Dave Doran and those guys, how they bounce back. Tony Gibson, no longer the defensive coordinator at NC State. He took the head coaching job at Marshall University, so we'll continue to see what their defense looks like overall under a new D coordinator. They have to figure out their quarterback situation. That was a mess for them last year. So a number of different aspects you look across, the landscape of college football, but more importantly, the ACC, it's going to be a good year again. I think the ACC will provide a lot of fun and, again, a lot of competition from top to bottom. What does Florida State do this year? Obviously, a 2-10 campaign last year. Obviously, they looked horrible. Were easily one of the worst teams in college football last year. DJU, obviously, out at quarterback. New OC in there, obviously. Mike Norvell replaces offensive coordinators, but also, too, really it was his offense last year. He releases play calling duty to Gus Malzahn, the former head football coach at UCF. We'll watch and see what he does. He resigned from UCF, which is, kind of an indictment on UCF a little bit out of the Big 12. Resigns from UCF, takes the offensive coordinator job at Florida State. I don't think that was a tremendous hire. He's got, good offenses, but not great offenses. And also, too, Tommy Castellanos will be the quarterback at Florida State this year. Obviously, he got benched at Boston College. Certainly a number of different areas where he needs to grow, I think professionally, but also, too, maturing-wise. I don't think that was exactly the greatest pickup for Florida State. I think they're going to be potentially in for another year of down quarterback play, but we'll continue to watch. We'll see what they do. It's a new year, but Florida State's got a lot to prove to show that they're one of the elite teams in the ACC. And obviously, for a team obviously suing the ACC, you want to make sure you actually win a little bit of games, obviously in the ACC, and obviously they got spanked by the ACC last year. And also, too, you look around, obviously a number of different teams. You can go down the list. Obviously, Syracuse, what are they going to look like without Kyle McCord? Fran Brown in his first year, a tremendous first year for Fran Brown, 10 wins last year. What's he look like in his follow-up year? A number of different aspects in the ACC, a lot of questions, but man, there's going to be some good football in the ACC. Georgia Tech on the Pitt football schedule this year. Obviously, Brent Key, I think I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's a tremendous football coach, well known for obviously his physicality, how he coaches his football team. If there weren't some bullshit calls down the stretch, I think they beat Georgia last year pretty, by at least a touchdown or at least 10 points because of how well he coached. He dominated in the trenches. When Pitt goes down to face, Georgia Tech this year, We'll be doing a preview on that. But guess what? You'll be hearing a lot of me. You'll be hearing a lot of talk, especially from me, talking about how they control the line of scrimmage. They're built from up front, the offensive line and defensive line. They don't shy away from contact. They love physicality. They play the Brent Key offense and defensive style, which is toughness. And Brent Key obviously comes from the Nick Saban coaching tree. I think he's done a really good job up there. Nick Saban has been up to Georgia Tech, talks a lot about Georgia Tech because of how good of a coach Brent Key has been. I think it's an underrated team to watch. And as you continue to watch overall the ACC, teams are only getting better because of the investment into each one of these teams across the board. It's going to be a fun year, and Pitt's going to certainly have a tough schedule this year. We're going to find out what Pitt's really made about, but also too how much of their toughness and what their coaching overall looks like going into year two of the Kade Bell offense. But also too, how does the defense get better? Look at the defensive tackle room, obviously a lot deeper this year with a number of different guys. Sean Fitzsimmons and Nick James expected to be your starters at defensive tackle. Francis Breu, Jasir Whittington, two guys that can back them up along with Isaiah Neal. You get 5 or 6 guys right there in the defensive tackle room, guys that I think that could be a major impact player from guys in the defensive side of the football in the middle. Obviously, you've got Zielinski, the Eastern Michigan defensive end, Jaden Moore, the Oregon defensive end, and also Blaine Spires out of Utah State coming in to play defensive end. Add those 3 guys with Jimmy Scott, the starter from last year. Obviously expected another year progression from Jimmy Scott. He really turned it on towards the end of the year, had a really good year. Really started to really develop because of the playing time he was able to get. That's 4 guys right there. Then you got Nate Temple returning as well. He'll be a good addition there, a guy who can rotate in and create time there. So you get 6 guys. I mean, what is it? 3, 4, 5 guys right there. And then don't be shocked if you see Ty Uhas out of Pittsburgh Central Catholic, freshman, redshirt freshman. Expect him to get some time at potentially defensive end. And then a true freshman to really watch out for this year, Juju Anderson, a guy, really a good football player. Came in as a 4-star prospect, really a good guy to watch out there. And also, too, Maverick Rossio. You saw him make a number of different plays. Obviously, the block punt that he had against, obviously, West Virginia was the most notable one from last year, but a guy who continues to get better from what I'm told. Spring camp will be fun to watch and see what that defensive end room looks like. And you can imagine that the linebacker room is deep. And obviously, too, with a number of additions on the back end with the defensive backs will be fun to watch as well. Let's see here. Jason, great stuff as always, brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate you too, my man. Can Pitt compete for an ACC championship? I think this is a great question. Yeah, here we go. Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Let me ask him here. Does Pitt have a shot at playing for the ACC championship? I'd say yes. And the reason why I say that is because, one, you look at last year, they were 7-0. They certainly played a good schedule up to that point. They played a great schedule in terms of what they were able to do, took care of business. But you saw the injuries and the lack of depth that Pitt had last year, and it really fell apart after that. The difference this year that I look at overall, it's going to come down to 2 things. Their depth this year, which is a massive difference from last time. Their depth this year is a lot better. They added to the transfer portal. They'll add more guys after spring. They added 3 good football players on the offensive line. Jeff Percy, offensive tackle out of Michigan. Kendall Stanley, offensive tackle. He was in all AAC conference, first team conference offensive tackle. He's in here as well. And then Keith Gouveia, the offensive guard out of Richmond, who was really bumped up. Obviously, we were lucky to beat out Virginia Tech for his services. I think the depth on the offensive line was huge. Jackson Brown, right tackle, who I think could be a lot better this year because of the overall projection. His playing time last year was really important. Also, Isaiah Montgomery, a guy who can play tackle, a guy who got a lot of snaps last year. Those 2 guys were really, really 2 young guys last year. They had to jump into the lineup a lot earlier than we wanted to. The fact that those 2 guys really jumped in there, got the experience they needed. Only heard a lot of good things about them, especially 2 leading up the camp so far, how much they've gotten better. I think Terrence Enos, Caleb Holmes, 2 other guys back there. Overall, and then obviously, too, you still got Ryan Bayer. You got B.J. Williams, Lyndon Cooper, all those guys. And I think that's a massive factor. You really got 8, 9 guys in the offensive line, where last year, really, Pitt only had 5 guys last year that you could really throw in there and know they were going to perform at a high level. When you have 8 to 9 guys, you have depth up front. And Jason, I talk about it all the time. the best football teams in college football or the NFL, how you build it is starting up front, your offensive line and defensive line. If you control the line of scrimmage, you can really dominate a college football game. And we saw, like Georgia Tech, for instance, lacked a lot of playmakers on the outside, but they were able to dominate up front on both sides of the football, which allowed them to have a lot of football wins last year. Dominating the line of scrimmage in college football and the National Football League will only lead you to success. And then, obviously, after that, great quarterback play. That's what you have to make sure you have that. And I think that, one, Pitt has their quarterback at Eli Holstein. He'll be healthy this year. I think the additions up front, again, the more depth will keep him upright, will keep him healthy. Obviously, Desmond Reed, All-American, he's back. I like the additions. Obviously, it's going to hurt losing a guy like Kanate Mumfield to the National Football League. But you add in Deuce Spann, wide receiver transfer from Florida State, was a projected starter last year until he got hurt. Andy Jean, former four-star wide receiver, redshirt freshman last year at Florida. He comes into Pitt. Then, of course, you got the really, in my opinion, wide receiver one right now, Kenny Johnson, really sitting at the pole position. I think a guy, you get him more involved this year. It'll be fun to watch all those three guys. But obviously, too, you still have Raphael Poppy Williams. He actually, believe it or not, had an injury last year I was informed of. Had torn ligaments in his thumbs. Obviously, that led to the reasons why he had major issues last year towards the end of the year. And it really affected him. Also, too, the difference this year that I'm more happy about is the depth on the defensive line. You saw last year, one of the things that we continually talked about was the lack of depth on the defensive line as well. So really, you had lack of depth on the O-line, lack of depth on the D-line. It was good that we were 7-0, but it was only a matter of time when an injury would happen that things fell apart. So obviously that happened. But this year, you look at the depth across the board. You got really 5-6 guys at the defensive end position who could play this year because of time they played last year, but also 2 transfer portal additions. I think you potentially add one more defensive end there. At the defensive tackle position, you're roughly about 4, 5, 6 guys deep. Again, a guy like Sean Fitzsimmons who came back from injury. Obviously, just praying right now that young man, he's a great young man. Sean Fitzsimmons comes from a great family. Looking forward to him having a healthy, first-year healthy camp. I'm saying it now. He will be healthy all camp. Positive thoughts. He will have a healthy camp. He will be a day one starter at the defensive tackle position with a guy like Nick James. Obviously, those 2 guys will be the anchors there. But obviously, too, Francis Breu was the highest-rated true freshman defensive tackle, according to PFF, which is a huge, massive factor for him. He's going to be a major impact on what Pitt needs to do up front and stopping the run. Pitt really struggled stopping the run the first 3-4 games of the year. I expect that to be really fixed and corrected this year. And in the linebacker position, you got Kyle Lewis, who was an All-American last year. He's back. Rasheem Biles is back again this year. I expect Cameron Lindsey, 4-star linebacker, will be a redshirt freshman this year, really to step up in the middle of that defense in the linebacker room. Braylon Lovelace, a guy who will step up. And you just look at the linebacker room overall. You love the depth that they currently have there. And also, too, there's another guy that I'm missing there, obviously out of Florida. I'm forgetting his name, but I love the kid. I think he's going to be an incredible linebacker. Love the physical toughness. Jeremiah Marcelin, that's who it is. Jeremiah Marcelin will be a damn good linebacker, and that has a lot to do with Ryan Manilak and what he does and being able to coach up the linebackers in that room. Then you look at the cornerback room. You got, obviously, you lose Ryland Gandy, who I think was a good cornerback. That kind of hurt a little bit, but you still got Rashad Battle back. You got Taman Lynham. Those 2 guys will be starters. But you also, too, got Rashawn Murray, D2 All-American. We'll see how his game translates to this, obviously, too, at the Division I level. Usually you don't want to take guys from that lower of a level, but when you're an All-American, I think those guys deserve a shot. If you're dominating at that high of a level, you can certainly come to this level as well. Also, too, the guy out of UC Davis, Kavir Baines, obviously another cornerback. So you really got 4 cornerbacks right there. And then Shadarian Harrison, a guy who was a redshirt freshman last year, should be fully healthy this year. That'll be your 5th guy right there. Then also, too, you have a guy like in the back end, Cruz Brookins. I expect him to have a big-time factor this year at the safety position. Javon McIntyre's back again. Those 2 guys will certainly have a big impact on what they do. Obviously, too, Pitt has received a transfer, Ohio State transfer. I think he can play safety or linebacker. We'll see what Pitt does in terms of what he can do. Obviously, Bonsu, a defensive back. I think he can play safety or he can play linebacker. I think for how stacked they are at linebacker, I'd like to see him at the safety position because he's a hard-hitting safety. Obviously, just couldn't get on the field at Ohio State when you get that many guys. Plus, he was only a redshirt freshman last year, so we'll utilize him as well. And then obviously, too, you got Anderson back there as well. So I think, again, the thing that really gets me to where I have that positivity, where I see them being able to compete for that level, is just based on the depth. That was the biggest question last year. They've solved questions around the depth, what they need to achieve. Now it's overall about execution, and that gets down to coaching as well. And I think that, again, Narduzzi, over time, we have seen a number of different levels where these guys make consistent, mistakes, obviously, especially towards the end of last year. It's going to come down to Pat Narduzzi being able to make critical and smart decisions and knowing what he needs to do to win those football games. Obviously, too, Kade Bell correcting a lot of mistakes he made last year, and watching the defense really jump back into place where we usually see it at, which is really attacking the quarterback, sacks, pressures, stopping the run. I think that's where we're at this year. I know it was probably a long-winded answer, but it's a great question by you, Jason, as always. It doesn't matter what your offensive system is. Going under center should always be an option in short yardage situations. It makes no sense to be in the shotgun with half a yard to go. Katura, I completely agree 100%, but they're not going to do it. And I completely agree with what you're saying. Me personally, I think there should always be a package where, like, for instance, they call it the tush push now, where you saw with the Philadelphia Eagles, you should be able to go under center and get a yard. And especially, too, when you have a guy like Julian Duggar, who he will have packages this year. He certainly proved himself to be quarterback number 2 on this roster. He will be the backup this year. He will have packages. He's a guy, you look at him, 6'4", 6'4", 225 pounds. A guy who's got a great arm, but certainly physical. That's a guy you can have a lot of plays on 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1. You need that 1 yard. He'll be able to get it. It's another year in the weight room where he's going to be able to be dominant. So, but I agree with you. They should have one under center, but I'm just telling you, with his system, he's not. Great stuff. Doozy keeps doing a great job of all college football. I agree. Hopefully we can continue to see him continue to get monitored. Pitt dad. That's usually the same guy. I think he changed his name from Pitt Tough Guy. That's pretty funny. Nice to see 3 big-time Whitfield recruits coming in first week of June. Any chance Pitt lands them? I think obviously there's a great chance to land them. And for me personally, and I'm going to say this right now, and I think this is a major topic that I've talked about with numerous recruits. I've talked about with hometown heroes. If you are a player in the Whitfield or in the City League, the more I've heard about is guys who think they know Pitt. They think they know what's behind the doors at Pitt, what they see at Pitt, what the overall facilities look like. You don't. If you are offered the opportunity to go on an official visit at Pitt, take it. You're going to see so much into a level. You've only seen the first layer. There's a second, third, and fourth layer that you haven't seen. Go on these visits. Go look at Pitt and really overall see the Pitt life skills system, how they're able to go and develop you as an individual off the football field, making sure you're on top of your academics, making sure you're successful. And a part of the Pitt life skills, when you're at Pitt, you're there, you can utilize them for your entire career, not just in the 4 years or 5 years you're at Pitt, but the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years after that. You're in that fraternity forever. Also, too, go into the number of different aspects, how the coaching staff can help you behind closed doors. Also, go back and you'll see all the different facility upgrades that you've seen in the Southside facility at Acrisure Stadium. There's so much more behind the scenes that you don't see. Also, too, looking at the campus in Oakland, you think as you've walked around Oakland, you think you know exactly what entails for what all has for any type of recruit. You don't. Make sure you go on those visits and ask questions, because a lot of guys, and I think a guy that really to ask for is Cameron Lindsay. He talked about, and even his dad, obviously, tremendous family overall. I'm so glad that they went to Pitt. Just diehard Pitt people, and that's why I love them. And they're just incredible people, to say the least. They even talked about how they potentially almost didn't take an official visit because they thought they knew everything. Go on these visits. Ask questions. Meet everybody. Have great personal relationships. Ask the questions that you want answered. Don't answer those questions for you. There's so much about Pitt that you truly don't know until you're on campus. And when someone from the inside is taking you around and showing you everything that Pitt has to offer immediately after your visit, I've heard from numerous players that have gone there, hometown heroes who said, you know what? I'm so glad I took that visit. And a lot of them are actually playing on Pitt's roster right now, have talked about they're glad they went on that visit because they asked the right questions. Make sure you take those visits. Trust me, you'll thank me later. And you'll thank the coaching staff and all the Pitt life skills, the athletic department, everything. They're incredible people from top to bottom. Make sure you go ask them questions and make sure you take official visits. No reason not to. You're a hometown kid. You are desired to be at Pitt. Make sure you go there. You are always welcome at Pitt, but take those official visits because you'll learn a lot more about Pitt that you think you didn't notice. Trust me. But to your point, Adam, I think there's a very good chance that they land all three of them, or even potentially one of them that weekend. I won't tell you which ones, but obviously two. I'd like all three of them, to say the least. Let's see here. Rumor has it PSU is planning on spending $160,000 per player from revenue sharing. WRW Pitt. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that's true at all. I think that they're going to be spending whatever they want on guys that play. The guys who play will get the most money, and I can tell you this: the quarterbacks will be getting millions of dollars. A lot like what Pitt's doing with Eli Holstein. They'll make $1 million plus. It's all dependent upon, it's never going to be straight across the board. That would be a bad platform, and they would certainly lose out in recruiting battles. It's all about each position. There's value at each position. It's a lot like the National Football League. You value the offensive line. How much is your starting left tackle worth? How much is your quarterback worth? How much is your first team defensive tackle? How much is your second or third team defensive tackle? Those are all in different aspects. It's certainly not $160,000 per player, and that's it. Each position is going to be worth a lot more or a lot less compared upon where they are, especially to where you are on the depth chart as well. I think we've seen that from a number of different levels as well. All right. Hell yes, get under center and get your backs downhill. Amen. Amen. All right, let's dive into another topic here tonight. April 12th, Saturday, April 12th is the Pitt spring game. Obviously, as you can imagine, a lot of conversation going around college football right now and talking about, should teams have a spring game? For me personally, I like how Pitt's having a spring game because obviously it's great for us fans to go to the game and watch, the different players show up there and watch them play. And obviously it's very vanilla. You're not going to see a lot. There'll certainly be guys on both sides of the football where it's a draft. That's the biggest thing. But overall, I would totally understand Pitt not having a spring game. A lot like what Nebraska's doing, a lot like what Ole Miss is trying to do. Other schools are looking to do. Texas has talked about how they're not doing a spring game because the rampant, backdoor deals and, tampering is through the roof. For me personally, I would be totally fine if, Pitt had, just their, for me personally, I would do is I wouldn't have a spring game. I would have a closed scrimmage. And at that closed scrimmage, if you were an Alliance 412 member or a season ticket holder, I would allow you to go to that football game, the closed scrimmage. That would be me personally, man. I think that would be a great benefit to the University of Pittsburgh. Obviously, you're donating to the University of Pittsburgh. You're donating to the football program. The rewards are there to go to those closed practices within the spring practices, and obviously, too, during the fall camp. I think they ought to do it during then as well. I think those are massive ideas, obviously, to create revenue, raise revenue. I think those are really important. I think overall, though, if I was Pitt, I would not have a spring game. And because the reason why is I don't want it televised. I don't want people being able to have on television, watching all my players run around and potentially trying to pick somebody off and trying to grab somebody through the portal. But what I can tell you is I would have a closed scrimmage. And if you're a season ticket holder or you are a member of Alliance 412, you're allowed to get a ticket to that spring game. That closed scrimmage. That's how I view it. And I think that's really important because, one, it protects, obviously, the roster. You've got a number of guys that are there. Obviously, in my opinion, we're still going to see guys leave after spring. There's going to be some guys who are not on the two deep, and this is for all Pitt fans to understand. There are going to be players that are not on the two deep that need to go somewhere else to get playing time. And I think that Pitt's done a good job of that overall in a number of years to where they make sure they push guys that aren't going to get playing time here to go somewhere else and make sure they play because they care about the players that are currently on their roster, which I think is a good thing. If you're not going to get playing time at Pitt, then you might as well go somewhere else to play, which we've seen that on a number of different levels. But I think overall, again, my idea, if Pitt was to not have a spring game, which I would agree with not having a spring game, I would have a closed scrimmage. And if you're a season ticket holder, one, you get to go to the closed scrimmage. And two, if you're an Alliance 412 member, you get to go to that scrimmage as well. That would be my overall suggestion to the University of Pittsburgh, to where you're able to keep out the TVs, keep out national television, make sure you have guys that are there. I think overall, I think that's the best way to go about it. But we've obviously heard they're going to have a spring game. They can certainly change their mind. But I would not be upset with Pitt. They said, hey, we're not going to have a spring game because of rampant tampering. We're going to have a closed scrimmage. And then they allow season ticket holders, renewed season ticket holders that are there right now, renewed season ticket holders, and members of Alliance 412, subscribers and donators of Alliance 412 NIL, go to that closed scrimmage. That's my opinion. That's how I would do it. And that's the kind of the advice I would give if my advice even mattered, which it doesn't. I can assure you, Pitt's going to do what they want to do. You were talking about depth earlier. It's the depth pieces that get poached. Exactly. That's what gets you. And Jason's really one of the best. Again, subscribe to his channel. He gets it. That's why it's easy to talk football with him, because he just gets it. This is a good topic. Tampering is real, 110%. Guys, if you haven't seen before, obviously, I think that, Pitt, again, we talked about the depth going into this spring camp. And again, they've got 17 early enrollees, which is really, really good. Between obviously true freshmen and obviously transfers coming in, obviously. This is going to be a really good spring camp because you have a lot of depth. And you're going to work a lot of guys in, teach the system on offense and on defense. You've certainly heard a lot of players already come to the podium and talk about how they've talked about the system. And maybe actually I'll pull it up here. Let me see here if I can pull it up here. Some guys just got some new ones. Obviously, the Pitt Live Wire, I always love their channel. They do a great job. Pitt's social media team, I think, does a really good job of promoting Pitt and does a really good job of letting these players, come to the podium and speak out. Let's see here. 4 days ago, let's get you guys something here. Conversations overall. Let's see here. Let's see here. Let's see. All right, I'm going to share my screen with you guys here. A little bit of Andy Jean here, obviously on the Pitt Live, the Pitt Network, obviously. They do a really good job. Again, their social media team is really good over there. Let me share my screen here with you guys. Listen to a couple things that these guys are saying, which are key notes of what they're saying here. Let's see here. Let's see here. Share screen. Let's see if it does it. Pitt football newcomer.
My research tell me they have a great offense. Everything here is just good. It's connected with Pittsburgh Steelers, so that was a big thing. Like, just seeing how the Steelers connected with this facility, that brings a lot of happiness to me, because you're around NFL coaches every day. You see NFL dudes walking in and out, and how long they be here for. So that just helped motivate me.
What your skill set makes you a good fit for this offense?
My skill set, I feel like my route running is very good, and I feel like the offense, they have pretty deep routes that I can run, and I feel like all the routes we have is like you can freak it for real. So it's a blessing.
Did a couple guys transfer from Florida that not been Kade? Did you know them at all?
No, I don't know them. I came in after they left, so I heard some good things about them for sure.
What was your time like in Florida? What do you know from using that time to bolster yourself a bit?
I learned a lot at Florida because I had Coach Billy Gonzalez. He was a very detailed coach, so I learned a lot from him. And when I come here, I can add that to here and use that to my game also, and learning things from Coach JJ also.
What did they tell you about the opportunity here at wide receiver?
His opportunity everywhere you go, no matter where you go. I feel like when you enter a new school, it's a new, everything restarts. Spring football is a whole new go-around. Everybody spot open, so that's it.
Andy, what do you think of the tempo that Pitt wants to play at?
This is huge, too.
I feel like the tempo pretty dope because that gives the defense no time to call a play or huddle up to understand what's going on. So I feel like that helps me also. You can rack up yards back to back, and it's just a blessing for real.
What are your first impressions of the quarterback room, especially Eli?
My first impression was awesome. Soon we ran routes on there one day, Saturdays, and just seeing how all of them look consistent. You don't know who the starting quarterback is for real, how good they throw. So that's big.
You know, friendly rivalry with Deuce, you guys in Florida State.
Oh yeah, that's my dog. That's my man's for sure. We just go at it every day. We talk about the chemistry Florida and Florida State had, so we just go at it every day, make sure each other good. So
And that's huge too.
That's my boy for sure.
Battle and competition at the wide receiver position.
How important is that to you in your life?
Oh, faith is very huge. Just growing up around my mom, my dad, they was big on God, and I'm very.
Here's a little bit of Deuce Spann.
I feel like this program was here just to,
Deuce
for me
Spann,
to
wide
be able to
receiver
show my
transfer
skill
from
set,
Florida State.
For me just to show people that I can take the top off the defense, run routes, catch the ball, and just be able to show off my skill set. So I'm just trying to show people that I can just do the things that I know I can do.
Deuce, why was Pitt then you feel the right fit?
I feel like Pitt the right fit because of the coaches. I feel like the coaches believe in me, and I feel like the coaches. I like the offense we run. The offense that we run, we throw the ball a lot. I like that, and I just feel like here I'm gonna have my opportunity just to show off my skill set.
You a guy that can take a short pass and create yardage? Is that where you feel like that quick passes, quick movement really goes to your skill set?
Yes, sir. I feel like that goes to my skill set a lot. I feel like I can take a.
Who's coming in the driveway?
Oh, commercial. And
A 1 yard pass or a short pass to just take it 50. I feel like I can do that. Yes, sir.
What about just 50-50 balls in the end zone? Your height, probably.
Oh, yes, sir.
You know, at the end, there was some
When I play receiver, I feel like it's no 50-50 ball. I feel like I could just, whenever the ball in there, I feel like it's mine. So whenever the ball in there, I'm going to catch it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to go get it every time.
Do you see quarterback coming out of high school?
Yes, sir. I played quarterback coming out of high school.
So what led you to make that switch to receiver?
My freshman year, I went to Illinois. My freshman year, I used to play quarterback there. And then the coaching staff got fired. So they ended up switching my position to receiver. And then I started playing receiver in practice. And I was going deep. I was doing everything that I wanted to do. So now I played in the game and then I went deep and I just stayed at receiver since and I started liking it. Love it.
Does that experience at quarterback, does that like help you?
Yes, sir. It helps me know like defenses and stuff because like reading coverages more, it helps me with that too. So I feel like me playing quarterback, that helped me at receiver too.
What are your impressions of Eli?
My impression of Eli's a good quarterback. He's gonna put the ball on the money, I feel like. And when we be throwing and practicing stuff, he's real cool. Like I talk to him all the time. We trying to get that connection down right now and just trying to get that connection down for the season.
You've been in the transfer portal twice, obviously, Illinois and Florida State and Florida State. But what were the differences between each time you went in? Did you know you wanted, I guess, this time around?
This time.
this is one good.
That's what he told me when I asked him. My daddy gave it to me when I was younger. You say what was the what?
What was the transfer process like for you coming to Louisville?
It was really quick like that. Cause I knew I was leaving. I was trying to see where was I gonna go though. I always kept in contact with Dad, so like I knew I had like it was like 80% chance I knew I was coming to Pitt.
Wow, 80%. Wow.
It was quick. I already knew I was going. So.
What's the defining for you that made you really want to come here?
Our bowl game. After our bowl game, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to Pitt. And I already knew Kade since high school, so like he been talking to me. So like, yeah, he always told me that like I like the way how they play designs is like they get you downfield, and I like going downfield. You feel me? I like to go deep, so yeah.
You said Louisville's bowl game.
Yeah.
You were playing out for that.
I was playing, but like I didn't really get like, all right, I only got 2 targets the whole game, 2 or 3, and it was in the dirt. So I'm like, yeah. And then
Last year.
Here's Bryce Yates, true freshman coming in.
As a kid, like all through like rec league, I played quarterback my whole life. Like I made a decision to switch to receiver. Like I want to say my freshman year of high school, and our quarterback, he was dynamic my junior year, and I had a great outstanding season my junior year, and that was his last year. And we didn't have any quarterback going into my senior year, and my head coach, he had a talk with me, and he was like, how you feel about going back to quarterback?
So you guys get it there, obviously. Just really good guys, obviously. A number of different guys coming into the Pitt program here early on. Again, Bryce Yates, a true freshman. Expect him to fight for some playing time this year, but you're watching the wide receiver position from what it was last year, how much it's changing going into this season. I mean, overall, Deuce Spann, new wide receiver. Katuris Hicks, new wide receiver transfer from Louisville. Deuce Spann from Florida State, Hicks from Louisville, Andy Jean from the University of Florida. You got Bryce Yates coming in, a true freshman who's going to compete for time this year, a fourth guy. Kenny Johnson, your number one wide receiver at this point. That's 5. Zion Fowler L, he's there. Tyreek Robinson, who's there, will be redshirt freshman this year. That's 6. I mean, you've got a number of different guys you're going to see through this year, and then you still have Raphael Poppy Williams. You've also got CJ Lee, who'll come back at some point after he's 100% healthy. He had to go through surgery at the end of the year. So you've got a wide receiver room that I really look at overall and say, you got a lot more options this year. You got some more depth this year that really fit the mold of what Pitt wants to do. Pitt wants to pass the football, which, again, a lot of modern-day football. They'll certainly run the football for sure with Desmond Reed, obviously Jules Goff, Derek Davis Jr., You'll see some other freshmen running backs come in there as well. Potentially, even if a guy comes back through the portal, we'll be able to watch that as well. But overall, Desmond Reed, Jules Goff, Derek Davis Jr. I mean, there's a number of guys you look through and you say, okay, hey, holy heck, there's a lot more depth this year. But obviously, these guys really fit the mold of what Pitt wants to do and what Kade Bell wants to do, which you saw at the end of the year last year. One of the things that was so comparable from previous stops is that it wasn't as fast. You saw the offense slow down because they changed quarterbacks. They couldn't go up tempo anymore. Injuries also hurt that. They couldn't go up tempo anymore. You saw the offense slow down. But when the offense is going fast, they're successful. And they're moving the ball and they're scoring points at a high rate. That's what Kade Bell wants to see on a consistent basis. And that year 2 here, I think, is going to really spark that overall. What wide receiver transfer do you think it will make the biggest impact? I'm going to say Andy Jean or Blue Hicks. I think it's going to be one of those two. Hicks is going to be a guy who plays in the slot. I think they're looking for another slot guy. He's extremely fast, a great route runner. I think he can be really utilized in this offense. But I think you needed a guy like Andy Jean who can really take the top off, like a Deuce Spann, but can really take the top off, but a guy who's really good in traffic. I think those two guys are it. I think Deuce Spann could be one of those guys, but until we really watch them in spring, Adam, get back to me after like halfway through spring. I'll be able to give you more of an update. But I think Andy Jean's going to be damn good. I think Blue Hicks is going to be another one that's going to be really good just because Hicks' speed is through the roof. I think just the more you can get him into open space, the more he can create more mismatches and get yards. That's my opinion. Obviously, too, the last topic of tonight, we're 52 minutes in, the last topic of tonight. The ACC conference realignment, but also, too, the ACC and automatic qualifiers. And again, I am 110% against the automatic qualifiers outside of the conference champions. I like the automatic qualifiers for conference champions. If you extend the playoff to 16 teams, there's no more first-round bye. I think that, one, the automatic qualifiers go to the conference champions, but they don't get the first four seedings. You place them as they are in terms of you rank the best 1 through 16 teams, but then you place 1 through 4, those 4 power, I guess the 5 conference champions all throughout 1 through 16 in terms of who's the best and who's not. That's my personal opinion. I think that overall, the SEC having 4 qualifiers while also having the most revenue at the Big Ten is stupid. I think they have all the advantage in the world. I think there's a lot of teams in the SEC who are trying to get good, but obviously NIL and the transfer portal have really evened the playing field, and you're starting to watch that. Alabama got absolutely waxed by a 7-5, 7-6 Michigan team. Didn't play well against them. Obviously did not play. Oklahoma absolutely destroyed them. Oklahoma took care of business there. And the same thing with Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt put up as many points as they wanted to on Alabama. You're watching some of these teams. I think that the college football product has become more of a level playing field because of transfer portal and NIL, and now every team is playing players. Compared to Alabama in the day where they have depth of the first, second, third, fourth string, but you don't see that anymore because guys can transfer when they want, but also too, guys are getting paid all across the country. And there was a great topic over on 365 Sports I'm going to play for you guys here with Ross Dellinger. And Ross Dellinger, they do a great job. 365 Sports does a great job. And they had an interview here, and they talked about it. And if they're going to have automatic qualifiers, which it sounds like they're going towards, I mean, the SEC and Big Ten should not have more than 3. And, even at that point, again, I've said it time and time again, there shouldn't be more qualifiers. The qualifier should be the conference champions. That's it. Obviously, to the gimmicks of a tournament before the playoff, the 1 versus 6 and all this stuff. It's not college football. You are devaluing the regular season. If you have 4 automatic qualifiers from a conference, can you imagine you're let's say you're in the SEC, for instance, you've got 8 conference games and you've got 4 non-con games. Let's say you have a schedule agreement between the ACC and the Big Ten where you face those 2 guys that are in there. Let's say you lose 3 non-conference games, and then you go 6-2 in conference. That's what? You'll be 8-4. 8-4 potentially if you lose 1 more, or you lose 3 games. Let's say you lose, let's keep it at 2 games in the non-con schedule and 2 games in your conference. That's 4 losses. That means you're 8-4 in the season. And if you're 8-4, you get in the playoff. I'm sorry, that's absolutely ridiculous. Or potentially you lose 3 games in your conference. You're 7-5. You're a 7-5 football team, but as long as you're in the top 4, you make the playoff. I just don't buy that. It's devaluing college football, and it's reshaping, how this truly plays out. It should be the qualifiers are the conference champions, and after that, you're picking the best teams after that. It should be that simple. And here, I'm going to play this for you guys here, obviously. Katura, anyone that can't see that, the roster is greatly improved, just isn't informed. 110%, I agree, Katura, that the roster is completely better than what it was before. And I think a lot of that has to do with, 1, the guys that have played from last year to this year, but also 2, the transfer portal and the guys they've brought in have been huge. And they've been great players where they really added depth, but also 2 key pieces that will start this year, which is really, really big for Pitt overall. And I still think you're going to see potentially another offensive lineman come in through the portal after the spring camp, potentially another defensive end, a tight end, potentially a running back. You're still watching those positions, and I'll be watching those because I think they still add players afterwards when it comes to the transfer portal after spring camp. But I'm going to share this with you guys. It's a pretty enlightening conversation from 365 Sports in an interview with Ross Dellinger, who I think is probably the best of the best besides Pete Thamel in terms of information dropping about college football. I mean, Ross has been doing a hell of a job. But here's a conversation here. I wanted to get you guys a view into here. 365 Sports, and then an interview with Ross Dellinger.
But risk do you think a Brett Yormark or a Jim Phillips run if they try to fight back against this and the automatic qualifiers? Is there a chance that then Sankey and company go back to the table, the Big Ten, and say, all right, well, then you get 1 team in? Or, is there a big risk or a gamble, in your opinion, in fighting back against this? Although you feel like you probably just don't want to sit there and take everything that they're dishing you, right?
Well, another
when
commercial.
It came time to take things to the next level, I knew that I had to make a website, and Wix was.
Well, I'll go back to last spring, which was CFP negotiations over revenue and format. And the format discussion, again, like I said, was tabled, but the revenue discussion did go through, and everybody signed a memorandum of understanding that was tied to the 6-year extension of the ESPN television deal that runs now through 2031. And that's part of that memorandum of understanding. The 8 other leagues in the FBS agreed to cede decision-making power on format to the SEC and Big Ten, and they agreed to give the SEC and Big Ten a majority of the revenue. And you probably ask, why would they do those things? Right? Because the SEC and Big Ten threatened to leave and start their own playoff. Right. And so that's kind of what happened last spring, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in here.
Do you think, honestly, that the SEC and Big Ten combined feel like they can have a national championship without Clemson, Florida State, teams like that?
Another one.
What's up? We outside. Having fun doing what I want, cause you know the sun beating down kinda like a drum. Look how I do it. Look how I do it.
Another beautiful. I think they probably feel that way. Yes, I'll give you guys this one. Many of the SEC ADs feel that they should have an SEC only playoff and an SEC only champion that is deemed by them the national champion. It's been something discussed in the room the last 2 or 3 years. That's how they think. Now, for the betterment and the whole of college football, we all know that's probably not great right? That's probably not good. You want, and Greg Sankey, to his credit, has said this multiple times, you want a coast to coast, national championship. And, with this format, we probably are getting a little bit away from that.
So, you know him. I've never talked to the man. He says things like this, but he does other things. What are we supposed to believe that Greg Sankey really wants out?
And right there, obviously, just that little snippet right there. One, the idea that, giving away power as they threatened, obviously, and I did a whole video on this again. I dropped it today. Make sure you go watch it on the channel about pushing back to the SEC and the Big Ten. The fact that they want to think that they can go off and do their own thing is absolutely absurd. The viewership would drop immediately, and then the amount of money would be absolutely just it would be in crisis level for how much money that they're losing. The overall aspect of just business in general from academia is just it's hilarious at this point. But the fact that you heard there that SEC thinks that they should have their own playoff and then they're crown their own national championship is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I mean, how much that would be tainted. And the only people watching those games would be the SEC, and that's it, is absolutely comical. I mean, you would be absolutely constricting total business and actual revenues. I mean, that would be absolutely comical. I mean, you'd have 20 teams at most for a playoff. That would be absolutely insane. But that's how some of these administrators and athletic directors think. And it's the lack of business knowledge and understanding that, guess what, that would not work. You just alienate the rest of the country, lose viewership, lose money, and it would be an existential crisis to where these teams wouldn't survive, and then they have to come back to the Big Ten, come back to the ACC, the Big 12, and to regain a lot of trust and then try to build that again. It's incredible to me, but I think that, Jim Phillips, as I talked about on the video I dropped today, Jim Phillips needs to push back, needs to be a leader, and quit allowing certain things to go unchecked and to hand over so much power. There has to be some level of negotiation. And again, you got to be good at negotiations and understanding that. But guess what? I mean, we've seen good things that he's done. Obviously, again, I talked about how I like the additions of SMU, obviously, who just went to the playoff in their first year in the ACC. Cal and Stanford. Obviously, Cal had a really good run for portions of this year. They've hired Ron Rivera as a general manager. They're certainly investing in the football. They'll be a good hand in that. Stanford, they're still looking to rebuild. We'll watch them. Also, too, you look at the CW Sports Network, which has added more revenue. In the next couple of years, it'll be $700 million infused extra money into the ACC because of new markets like Texas, California. Obviously, SMU not taking any distributions only helps the other ACC teams out because you're making more money. Success initiatives, brand initiatives. I've talked about how the brand initiative, I think, is going to be going towards the SEC pretty soon, because why do teams like Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, why do those 5 teams share money with Arkansas, Mississippi State, Missouri, Florida? Why do they share revenues with those teams who can never win? South Carolina, why? Why share revenues with those smaller teams? The same thing with the Big Ten. If anything, more in the Big Ten. Why does Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Penn State, why do they share money with teams like Indiana, Rutgers, Minnesota, Nebraska, Iowa, Northwestern? I mean, why share money with those teams? Why not create their own? And I think that's going to come down the pipe pretty soon, too, because they can make more money that way, too. It's only a matter of time, so that comes down the road. So, in my opinion, Commissioner Jim Phillips needs to start pushing back and starts needing to create a backbone and understanding, hey, if they want to start their own playoff, go off and do your own thing. The ACC, the Big 12, and the Group of 5 will do their own thing and still get better viewership, because guess what? If you're alienating 2 conferences and we're adding more conferences in, the viewership's going to drop for them. You got to call their bluff at some point. And that time period has to come. And I think that eventually, when it comes down to it, the Power Four and potentially even the Group of 5 may break off from the NCAA for football only and start doing their own thing, which I think is only a matter of time until they start doing it. Well, guys, again, I think that we've reached the hour mark. I haven't seen anything new here, obviously. No more comments. So, guys, as always, appreciate all the support. Another Sunday conversation in the books. Again, I appreciate each and every one of you and the support that you've had here. Cannot thank you enough. Again, subscribe down below. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video. And go look at the new videos I've dropped down below with some really good information in there. Obviously, if you haven't watched it yet, the new videos are down below there, especially with the ACC, negotiations, teams, buyouts, everything in terms of that as well. So, guys, as always and forever, hail to Pitt and hail to the ACC. I'll see you guys next time.